This is Hidden Killers with Tony Brueski. Here now, Tony Brueski.
There's more testimony from Jeff LaCasse, the ex-boyfriend of Wendy Adelson. Just when you thought you heard it all. We're going to go through that today, and we're also going to dissect some of those divorce filings that went on between Wendy and Dan Markel while he was alive. Some of these things filed, never actually litigated. So we're going to dive into some of those filings to get a better idea on who Wendy was to Dan. These are allegations. These are allegations that Dan made in the divorce filing. Now, keep in mind, it is just that. If you've ever been through a divorce, if you've ever known someone who's been through a divorce, when it got nasty, if it got nasty, you know that those two documents, those two filings that go back and forth, sometimes multiple times, where it's a reply to this and a reply to that, it can get pretty nasty. And the reflection of the person that's being portrayed in those documents sometimes doesn't necessarily reflect who we think they are or who they portray themselves to be in real life. But we all know, if you've been in a relationship, that person behind those closed doors in that capacity is sometimes very different than that person that the public perceives. We're going to hear how Dan Markel viewed Wendy in his own terms, in his own words, in those filings. And that's going to come up in the second hour. Shavaun Scott, psychotherapist and author, going to join us to help us break all of that down and kind of dissect the world and the mindset that Danny Markel was in right at the time up into his death, when the Adelson family decided, we don't like this thorn in our side. So we're going to get into that in just a little bit. So there's a lot to break down here. I don't know why this case has been so fascinating. I guess because it keeps going on and on and on. What are you guys thinking as we dig deeper into the world of Wendy Adelson? Obviously, she maintains her innocence. She's never been charged with anything as of right now. So anything we're talking about is alleged, and just kind of putting dots together, connecting the dots here on the other side.
Well, anytime you are going through a divorce, which I personally am, I haven't really said it. I've skirted around it, but I am going through a divorce.
I had no idea.
Oh, shut up.
Oh,
shut
my
up.
God, Todd. Did you know? Did you know? After all of the things she was saying that were like walking up to the line and not... I had no idea.
But
You're going through a divorce. When were you going to share this?
Shut up.
When were you going to share this with us?
Shut up.
Holy shit. I had no idea.
But what I was about to say before I was rudely interrupted, boy, you two are squirrely today.
Sorry.
Some shit went down before we went live.
No.
It was fun. I love these guys. But you look at life through your own lens.
Yeah.
And the way I've been viewing this is, to me, it's teaching me a lesson that this divorce could get really ugly because of some things that happened. And I've been watching the Adelson case. There's no murder going on in my situation, but there's a lot of angry feelings here. And,
sure.
And a lot of it is on my fucking part, let me tell you. But it's made me very hesitant to be as reactive as I want to be, because things can escalate. And for me, this has been a life lesson. I'm very grateful to this entire case and us covering it. And I'm really sorry for what this family's gone through. But I would think if you're going through a divorce, use this as a cautionary tale that, maybe you need to reel in your emotions and take a deep breath. And before you call your attorney and launch into a $375 email,
take a breath.
Sit back and say, is this really necessary? Do I really need to do it this way?
I think the world would be a better place if everyone did that for everything.
I've been doing a lot of that in the last couple of months. And
because reactive solves nothing.
And in a situation like this, it costs money. I am in right now, probably $4,000. We haven't even done anything.
Yeah, it's not cheap.
Done shit.
No, and that's half of divorce. It's people reacting to shit they don't really even need to react to, or just let it play out in a way that it will play out. It's everybody getting feeling more validated because they're basically saying things out to the ether, to the world, and not really understanding that it doesn't mean shit.
Right.
Until it's in the correct place at the correct time and delivered in the correct way. Because the court's the one that's going to make the fucking decisions. There ain't no judge that's going to go, oh, did you hear that real bitchy voicemail she left her attorney that night? Oh, she was pissed. That guy must be a total dick. No, it's going to come through in very litigious language that is to spell out things, because that's the only way it will be accepted or observed.
Yep.
But we are so naturally reactive as human beings, and we just, it's the throw up of everything. And if we could all take a breath and not react to everything like it's life or death, because most things are not life or death,
right?
We'd be in a much better place. Relationships should be better. Everything would be better.
Yeah.
If there's anything that you walk away from this with, Stacey, and continue to practice for the rest of your life, it's that.
Absolutely.
Be
and
less
like
reactive.
I said, this has just been, and I've taken it upon myself to learn the lesson. Nobody is really, you know.
Sometimes you just need to live it, because if you are a naturally reactive person, I had been for a very long time in my life until I went through some of that shit. And then it's like, oh, when those people had said, you know, calm down, take a breath. And you're like, if you only knew,
I can't.
You know, yeah, I can't. If you like, sometimes it's just one of those damn things. It's like children, because in a lot of ways we are still children in our minds with experiences that we've never had before. And it takes us getting too close to the fire sometimes to walk back and go, oh, yeah, they were right. I should have listened. Now I'm going to take that into practice going forward.
100%. And that's what I've learned from the Adelson family and watching this absolute shit show is that, you know what? Divorce is ugly. Divorce is painful, but you can do it in a way that doesn't destroy your own self, and you don't have to destroy the other person. Just walk away.
Yeah. It does no good at the end of the day if you've destroyed yourself for your goal.
And if you're trying to destroy somebody else, you will be destroyed in that process.
Exactly. Look at Donna. Look at Charlie. Look at the situation Wendy's in. I mean, they had a goal. They were trying to their reaction was destroy Dan Markel. I mean, Donna even said it in so many words. I don't have the exact quotes, but it was just like, here's what happens when you screw with the Adelsons. Yeah, that means a lot other than to yourselves. I'm glad you're telling yourselves that, and you can all, the Adelsons screwed. Like, yeah, you're all behind bars now. How'd that work out for you?
No, that doesn't mean that I don't want my soon-to-be ex to wake up one morning and have fire ants swarming his testicles.
But you can't be the one that goes online and searches for where do you buy the best fire ants, and then find the Reddit threads that talk about how you get them into someone's home.
Let us do that. Let us do that for you.
Yes, exactly. Let us be the accessories to the crime.
Hi, Charlie.
We'll be your Catherine McBonas. Yeah, and Sigfrido's Garcias with
I'm
fire
the new kid on the block with this whole thing, so I didn't come into this until Donna's trial.
Yeah.
So I was new to the whole story, and so I really only got that piece. So going back and watching some of the testimony from Charlie's trial and all that kind of stuff is very interesting. And also, it just as all these trials went on, it just added up, and you kept looking further down the line. At least I did, to the Wendys of the world and maybe the Harveys of the world, and just going, what was your involvement in all this? Because it's got to be there somehow. And obviously, we've seen some recollection of that in some of the testimony, but I really want to see where this goes. I would like her. I'm not going to lie. I'd like to see her go to trial. I just would.
I think she should. I think there's enough evidence here. I don't know how deep it goes. I don't know how, like we've talked about a gazillion times, how involved was she? And I think there's a lot of valid arguments for both sides, but I think the fact of the matter is, based on the evidence that exists, there was some type of awareness that an event was going to take place the day Dan Markel was murdered, involving Dan. Did she know the extent of it? There's a lot of evidence that points that she likely did. But again, never been charged, maintains her innocence. There are ways, though, where you can look at this, and I don't think it's that crazy of mental gymnastics. It's just more seeing things from a perspective of someone who was essentially brought up in this sort of environment. And you can look at Wendy as a victim of narcissistic abuse in her own way, but then ended up being, if she is that, we can't diagnose her, but ended up repeating the pattern to a certain extent. There's evidence for that too. It's hard to know, but that's why we're here, just to discuss. Again, innocence till proven guilty. Again, just maintaining your innocence, not been charged with anything. But I think a lot of us kind of feel like the countdown's on, especially when we take a look at the testimony of Jeffrey LaCasse, her ex-boyfriend, who has a lot to say. And we're going to take a look now at some of the testimony. This is Jeff testifying in Charlie Adelson's trial. And I should tell you, because I've heard a lot of complaints about the audio on this, the audio from the court originally sucked. It was like really, really low, really, really bad. So what we did is we amped the volume up, and then through AI technology, helped to pull those other sounds back and make this audible. Otherwise, you'd be like, what? Now, granted, it does sound a little mechanic, a little electric,
Garbly.
a little mechanical here and a little garbly here and there. But I'm going to tell you this, 10 times better than the original audio that existed. We wouldn't be able to play it back because we wouldn't be able to understand it half the time if we had just gone with the original. We've not edited it. We haven't, other than taking out gaps of sound, of dead sound, of dead air. We've not edited this. We've not changed any words or testimony, nothing like that. But if you go and say, it's a little electronic, is this AI? It's not AI. It's just enhanced original audio so you can hear it better. So I want to get that out there. Let's begin. This is Jeff LaCasse and the testimony of him in the trial of Charlie Adelson. We'll break it down.
Please raise your right hand, sir. Do you swear or affirm the testimony you're about to give will be the truth? You may take your seat.
Please introduce yourself and spell your name.
My name's Jeffrey LaCasse. Sorry. Jeffrey
How are you employed, sir?
I'm an associate professor at Florida State University.
How long have you been with FSU?
I came back in 2013. I was also there from 2000 to 2008.
Have you always lived in Tallahassee?
No, I'm from California originally. I went to Phoenix for 5 years from 2008 to 2013. Really loved Tallahassee, so when I got a tenure track job here, I was excited to return in fall of 2013.
Did you have a relationship at some point with Wendy Adelson?
I did.
What was that relationship?
We met in fall of 2013. Apologize for my voice. I'm still on water.
You've been in water.
We started dating in the fall of 2013, September 2013. We dated casually in the fall and more seriously in the spring and summer of 2014.
When did the relationship end?
Well, that's a little tricky, but basically July of 2014.
All right, we'll walk through that a little more in detail. During the time that you were dating Miss Adelson, wait, we need to move it.
Definitely. This is about the right distance here. Can we?
I know.
Adjusting the mic.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. So during the time that you were together, did you become aware of Wendy Adelson's recent divorce from Dan Markel?
I did. On our first several dates, that was the primary topic of conversation.
And were you aware that this was an unusually nasty divorce?
Yes.
During the time that you were dating her, did you become aware that even subsequent to the divorce, there was ongoing litigation pending?
Yes.
Did you know Dan Markel?
I met Professor Markel. I did not know him. I probably spent 10 to 15 minutes in his presence across the course of that relation.
And were you specifically familiar with the litigation concerning Wendy Adelson relocating with her children to South Florida?
Yes, that was the topic of conversation.
If you know, did Wendy want that relocation to take place?
Yes, on our second date, the topic of relocation and being stuck in Tallahassee came up, and the date was ended abruptly when she went to the bathroom and returned with tears in her eyes and just left the date because she was so upset. That was about two and a half months after it was denied.
All right.
And it continued to be a topic, but that's
But that issue seemed to be specifically what was upsetting her on that day.
Definitely was she left the group date suddenly because it came out.
All right. And did she have family in South Florida?
Yes.
And what family was that?
Well, our brother, Charlie Adelson, Harvey Adelson, her father, and Donna Adelson, her mother, were the ones primarily that I heard about.
Were you also familiar with the litigation seeking to limit the exposure of Wendy Adelson's young sons to her mom, Donna Adelson?
Yes, in spring of 2014, yes.
And did you observe Wendy to be taking that filing seriously? Did she seem stressed or worried about it?
Every filing, she took seriously. When she was stressed, I reported to TPD that every time a motion was filed, it affected our relationship because she's very upset.
During the time that you were in a relationship with Wendy, did you have an occasion to meet her family members in South Florida?
I did. Well, I met her parents mostly up here. So I met Donna and Harvey Adelson probably 8 to 12 times here. I met the defendant down in South Florida one time.
All right, so you only met Charlie Adelson one time.
That's correct.
When was that?
That was the evening of March 11, 2014.
And had you already met the parents several times at that point?
Yes, probably 6, 8 times of that time, maybe more.
So they came here quite frequently.
Yes.
What about Catherine McBowen? Did you meet her?
She was present at the dinner that I attended on March 11th, where it was myself, the defendant, Wendy Adelson, and her went to dinner that evening, March.
You're saying the defendant. Do you see the person in the courtroom
Yes.
that you had dinner with? Who's that?
And it's Charles Adelson, known to me as Charlie.
Could you point him out and describe what he's wearing?
Yeah, he's sitting in the center of the defense table, wearing a light blue tie and a navy blue sports coat. Yes.
And so Catherine McBowen, how was she related to this family or affiliated with the family?
I was introduced to her as Charlie's new girlfriend, essentially.
And was it your understanding that this was the first time that Wendy was moving Catherine McBowen as well?
That was my understanding. She was excited about Catherine McBowen. Was main patient, yes.
All right. So anything unusual happened at the dinner?
Well, at the dinner, Miss McBowen mentioned that she had I guess it was her ex-common law husband, who had a criminal history that sounded very serious, and I did raise my eyebrows at that.
Did Charlie Adelson seem disturbed or upset by Catherine McBowen mentioning that?
I don't recall him seeming disturbed, no.
What about after dinner? Where'd you go next?
We went to Mr. Adelson's home, and we sat in his hot tub and had a few drinks and talked for a little while.
Who's the we that sat in the hot tub?
Yeah, myself, Wendy Adelson, and Charles Adelson was in the hot tub for a while, and his then roommate, Dr. Jerome Obed.
All right. So Dr. Obed was living with Charlie Adelson at that time?
That was my understanding, was his roommate.
All right. And where was Catherine McBowen at that time?
She did not accompany us back to the house.
In the hot tub, did the defendant make some statements that were of interest in this case?
Yes.
What were those?
I continue.
More,
We had a short objection there.
the hot tub.
Yes, he did mention having contacts on both sides of the tracks, meaning dentists, lawyers, professional class people, but they also had people he knew that were a criminal element. Yes.
What's the thing about these people that are the criminal element?
He mentioned specifically, I repeated it to DPD, about Cuban neighborhoods where you might find that criminal element.
Okay, so he next close to those type of people.
That's what he said.
And
Yes.
what was the context of this? Was he just seemed scared about it, worried about it, or something else?
Seemed to be bragging.
I want to ask you about a meeting with Wendy at a coffee shop that occurred on June 4th, 2014. You recall that?
I do.
What happened at the coffee shop?
We went to the Red Eye coffee shop to have coffee just to meet midday, and Miss Adelson canceled a trip that we had planned for July 11th to 17th to go see my parents, which was a big deal in the relationship, and she abruptly canceled it.
Did she offer an explanation as to why she needed to cancel the trip?
Not one that made sense. She said that she feared that we would not get back in time, and she emphasized, had to be back on the 18th to pick the kids up out of school, which would have been July 18th, 5 p.m., is my understanding. And I couldn't fathom why in the summer going through Atlanta you would be able to get back in time. It didn't make any sense to.
So she was worried you could be delayed and she wouldn't be able to pick the kids up.
Right, and we had people who could babysit. It didn't make any sense at all, but that was what she said. That day was very important.
All right, and so that occurred on June 4th.
It did.
All right, did you see her later that evening?
I'll just hang out with her and her children.
And was that her residence on Aqua Ridge?
Yes, ma'am.
And how was she that night? And this is June 4th, right?
It is. She was a nervous wreck to the point where she was sick to her stomach. Asked me to get to her house as soon as possible. She was in that much distress. And she didn't have food poisoning or flu or anything obvious. She was just a nervous wreck. So I went to her house, immediately went to the store to get her Pepto-Bismol and a couple of things from the convenience store. I have the credit card receipt is why I recall that so specifically.
And did you have any idea why she was acting? I assume this is unusual for her.
It was fairly unusual. The degree of severity was definitely unusual. But that whole week, June 4th to 9th, she was very nervous. So.
And she didn't. Did she tell you it was because killers were in Tallahassee to kill Dan Markel, did she?
No, I was starting to later find out that there was hitmen in town at the time.
Okay.
Let's pause that for a second.
Forward a little bit to.
Let's kind of go over what we have seen her or seen here in this this testimony. I'm trying to figure out and try to get a grasp on Wendy, because early on he said that Wendy's getting upset at every single filing that happens in this divorce. And look, at the when you first get into that world, it can be very upsetting, without a doubt. Because I mean, nobody really wants to be there, but you're there, and yes, it can be upsetting. But you do a couple of those, and you kind of get used to your new normal and the temperature in the room and how it is, and it's not so shocking when the room's kind of chilly after you've been there for a while. It's like it's uncomfortable, but it's not. Oh my God, that oh my God, this is a chilly room I'm walking into. So why is she getting upset at every single filing that goes on in this case?
2 words.
Yeah.
Don't forget about Donna Adelson.
Exactly.
There it is.
Right? And
Donna
and the
Adelson.
fuel that she's basically throwing on every filing fire that comes through.
Exactly.
And mom doesn't
Exactly.
need to know about this.
No.
That's the thing. I've had several emails come in from my attorney, and I read them and go, oh my God. But I leave it at that.
Hey, why don't you send them to your mom and see what she says?
Right?
I mean, really. I mean, that's if you, and this is where everyone has to understand the enmeshment is what this is about. Yeah. Wendy has been bred essentially by her mother, conditioned by her mother to run everything by her mother. No matter what it is, all decisions, even as a 30-some-year-old adult woman with children, Donna has to be the one that puts the rubber stamp on it. Otherwise, it ain't safe. And this is in the mind of Wendy. This is my interpretation of just someone in that situation and likely what Wendy was feeling. Obviously, I can't speak for Wendy, but it's not safe. So what's mom going to think? And when you go to mom for something like that, what you're going to what you ideally would get is some sort of stability, not more anxiety, not more, oh my God, well, what if he does this? You better start putting on the best acting skills of your life, Wendy, because if you don't, this is going to happen. You're going to ruin this life. You're going to ruin that life. Harvey's life is ruined. My life is ruined. The gerbil you had in 3rd grade. We buried him in the backyard next to the teeter-totter. That gerbil's life ruined because of you, you bitch. Anyway, that's probably how that went.
The Hidden Killers Live players, ladies and gentlemen. Nice round of applause for today's performance.
That was something.
I appreciate it. But that's what's going on. It's not, okay, honey, let's figure this out. Let's look at this with, as Robin says, a loving critic. Mom should be a loving critic. Not someone standing there with a flamethrower and barrels of gasoline and a cigarette in her mouth. Because that's essentially what Donna Adelson has been to her children. One of them got the hell out of Dodge. The other two continued to play along. One decided to go to the other side of the tracks and get more ammo for Mom and more gasoline. Mom would probably like more of this. It seems she likes gasoline and shit. Let's go get more. So that's Charlie. And then over here, you have Wendy, who's bringing her these problems, and there's no calming. There's no, hey, we got to figure this out. What's going to be best for the kids? Number one should be the number one goal in that conversation. If you truly give a damn about your offspring. And then, number two, okay, what's going to be best for your daughter? But quite often, the answer to those questions will be answered by what's best for the children. And because the little kids, Wendy's kids, are now the children and the priority, Wendy ain't the priority anymore. Donna ain't the priority anymore. You have to do what's best by those children. And all Donna is doing is what's best by Donna. And all Wendy knows is what is to do best by Donna. So she has to bring everything to her, and Donna brings scare. Woo! It's going to get bad. It's going to get horrible. The only solution is what I'm going to offer you. And early on, it's litigation. It's, well, threaten him with this, do this. It's behind the scenes stuff. It's dress the kids up like Nazis and Hitler Youth. And literally, if you're like, that sounds insane, are you making that up? No, it's part of this story. She actually contemplates dressing her Jewish grandchildren up like Hitler Youth as a way to get back at Dan Markel. It's insane. And these solutions obviously can probably be very upsetting to Wendy, but she knows the solutions just keep going. And while she's upset at every filing, the absurd level of her being upset at that very moment, right before all this goes down, is very telling, especially if it's off the charts higher, according to LaCasse here, as in comparison to the other times that she's been very upset. Why would it be so much more over here at this very last one where Dan ends up dying?
It's a lot.
I'm going to guess it's because she might have known more. I don't know. Let's keep listening.
This TV situation. Do you know anything about Wendy's TV being broken?
I do.
And when's was the TV broken, if you know?
Between June 11th and 18th, I think it's closer to the 11th, but 100% in that week.
And how do you know it was in that week?
Because we rented a movie, How to Train a Dragon 2, to give the kids a special movie night. And I have text messages where I'm discussing having seen the movie by the 18th with friends.
So you were able to a fair amount of
Yeah, they were
time
friends. Yeah.
All right. So do you get the movie or?
Well, it was back in the day. It was Redbox. So I rented a DVD from a Redbox. It was 24K.
All right. And go over there with the movie. And what happens when you arrive?
I walk in the door and Ms. Adelson asks me to look at her television because there's something wrong with the television.
And what was wrong with the television?
Well, I turned it on and I was immediately confused because it really shouldn't have been a question. It says you turn the TV on, it's been struck by an object and is damaged and basically unusable.
Can you explain what the damage looked like?
Yeah, it looked like somebody stood in front of it, took their fist, and hit it like that was my first impression.
Kind of like a shatter mark with spiders.
Yeah, there's like an impact crater, and then there's, from that, and it's all pixelated and distorted, which makes it very difficult. Really, no one would watch this TV unless you had to. And I had second thoughts about that. I looked around the room. Maybe the kids broke it. So I looked all around the room, and it didn't seem plausible that the children broke it. They're very small. This object had to be kind of heavy. I'd thrown a ball around with them. I just couldn't see how the kids could have done it.
But you didn't see how it done.
I didn't see it. I didn't know for sure. And I didn't know we'd be discussing this in a murder trial. So I didn't investigate further or think about it very much, to be honest with you. I just thought, okay.
Were there other TVs in the house?
There was a TV in the back bedroom, a similar make and model that we had watched television with the kids before on that TV before. So yes.
That where you watched the movie that night?
No, I went to go hook up the DVD player in the back room. Miss Adelson insisted that it would not work. And actually stopped me from even trying. So thought that was very odd, but I didn't want to argue. And it's her house, her TV, her kids. So I said, okay.
So did you watch the movie on the broken TV?
Yeah, we gave the kids movie night where we watched a movie on a broken television that was distorted enough that you could follow what was happening, but the kids are whining and crying the whole time. And I wasn't whining or crying exactly, but I was tempted to because it was pretty frustrating. And I just didn't understand, what was going on. And of course, I had related that this TV is broken, it's unwatchable, it's not covered by warranty, and to get a new TV. And I offered to go do that for her anytime she wanted. She's a busy single mom. I'll run by Best Buy, get you a new TV. It was not like an 8-inch TV or something that was really that luxurious. It was a TV like you'd see in a dorm room, so we could have replaced it right away.
All right, did you end up getting a new TV?
No, she turned me down several times on that offer, and again, it's her house. I tried to respect her boundaries, and I said, oh, okay. But it was inconvenient because after dinner, it's nice to be able to put the kids in front of that TV while you clean up the dishes and stuff. And just sat there being an inconvenience for a while.
All right. I want to ask you about when is Ms. Adelson's birthday?
Let's pause for a second.
April 22nd.
I wanted something to say about that TV thing.
Go ahead. Yeah.
How much of a setup does that sound like? Like, okay, I have to have a reason that the TV's broke. I have to have somebody come out and look at it the day of the murder. And I'm going to have my boyfriend come over to experience this so that they know I'm not lying.
Interesting. Look at you, Shaggy.
So to know that she's not lying, that she has a broken TV, and that's why there's a TV repairman coming over to fix the broken TV?
Correct.
And Charlie bought her the TV.
Charlie bought her the TV.
So do you think Charlie bought her the TV with the intention of going, we're going to break this TV?
I don't know about that necessarily, but I do find it odd that week he's over to watch with the kids. The TV's not working. She's got to have somebody come out. And ironically, she doesn't remember the timing, according to her last testimony in the last court case. She didn't remember exactly when the TV got broken. It could have been a month. It could have been a week, whatever. It sounds like it was the week of. Is that possible?
Yeah. And he's well, it sounds like it was broken for a longer time because he's saying, I've offered several times. It sounds like more than a week where Jeff was saying, I can get you a new TV. So it might have been broken longer, but I think that the timing of the break doesn't really matter so much as to the purpose of the break and why it's there. And Charlie is the one who bought the TV. When he delivers the TV, literally says, it's cheaper than buying you a hitman. Why are you making that joke at that moment in time? Now, I get dark humor. I mean, I'm full of it, obviously.
Yeah.
And I could see if I had a sister, which I don't, I had cats. So let's say one of my cats was a human being.
Perfect.
And was a sister. And this was going on. And I could see making a macabre joke like that if this individual is being portrayed as being a really shitty human being, even if he's not. But that's the story you're getting from your sister, and and that's where it ends. You're not like seriously thinking about going and buying a hitman. You're just making a macabre joke. But when it's put all into this context here, he makes the joke about the hitman. The hitman is literally what takes place as part of the alibi of Wendy not being there, pulling the trigger or having anything to do with it. She's there with Geek Squad and Best Buy to get it fixed at the time of the actual murders. I do wonder how far back that goes, where this is part of the genius of Charlie and Wendy, who basically, in my opinion, probably have the brains of about 12-year-olds when it comes to problem-solving skills, because Donna has been that brain most of their lives. So a 12-year-old may think something like this up. It's like, well, we got to break some. Okay, I'll bring the TV. That'll be the alibi. Break the TV.
Yeah.
There's the alibi. There's the boyfriend who has the witness. I give him more credit because they seem to think this through a little bit. It's stupid. It doesn't really hold up, but it is kind of a manufactured piece of this that doesn't seem to be. Why is there a broken TV involved in this story at all? And the hitman joke connected to the television and all of that. So I agree. I do wonder if that the TV was not fixed for that purpose. Obviously, and again, one of the first things I wrote down when we started listening to this, can anyone be that stupid about TV damage? If you looked at a TV and you clearly see it looks like some object hit it, whether it be a fist or a bottle of juice, whatever it may be, hit it, shattered it, spider webs going off through the TV. Is anyone stupid enough to think, they can fix that?
Apparently she was.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I was just going to say,
I guess you can
family.
be. Was she, or did she know? Did she just need the repair people to come and say, yeah,
that's
broken?
She needed an alibi. That's what I'm saying. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I don't think she's that stupid to realize that TV's not fixable.
And also, and I would hope so. And the other piece is, and I have to throw this back out there, obviously, as Jeff was saying, the kids were whining about the TV. It was a real issue for them, blah, blah, blah. How long would a mother deal with that if the TV had been broken for a longer period of time? And also the kids didn't seem to say, yeah, we've been dealing with this a long time. Yeah. You know, it seems like it almost just kind of happened before he was brought over to witness the damage.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay. Yes. Yeah. I agree. And I find it, this is the first time I've picked up on this piece on the testimony of, well, I'll take the DVD player to the back room and it's not going to work. It's not going to work. Of course it is. You plug it in and you may not know how to set this up yourself. This day and age is pretty simple. You plug a cord in and press play, but I get it. Some people can't do that. With this, why wouldn't you just take that solution? Because she had to make sure the kids knew the TV was broken. She had to make sure he knew it was broken.
Yes.
And let that simmer for a little bit. We're going to watch a whole damn movie on it. So those kids are going to be able to reflect on that and go, yeah, the TV was broken. It'll be the first thing they say when they talk about watching something on that TV. So everybody knows the damn TV is broken. That was a message that had to be brought across to all those people. I'm guessing maybe Donna had a part in this of, you got to tell them this. You got to do this. I'm guessing this might all be by Donna's directive in one way, shape, or form. And Wendy's going along with what the leader says is best. Wow. That's an interesting, because I've always been weary on the TV. Like, what is the element? Why? This makes more sense.
She really wanted him to remember that experience. Yeah. That's why they couldn't try the other TV. That's why she let the kids whine about it all night long and actually watch the movie, right? Yeah. Like they could have decided to go do something else. Nope. We're going to watch it.
Yeah.
We're going to experience this so it never leaves your mind.
That's the TV story.
Yep. Yeah, it's sinister.
God. People.
Humans.
Yeah. Continue on.
Thanks.
birthdays.
I've got this out of order. Let's skip over that for now and go to the big fight in June. Ms. Adelson mentioned that there was a big fight toward the end of June. Do you recall that?
Yeah, that's the weekend in June 27th, 28th.
Where were you when that fight occurred?
We were in Gainesville. Miss Adelson accompanied me for a work trip. We were all scheduled for a meeting. She accompanied me on a work trip, and we ended up having a pretty big argument Saturday night in the hotel.
When did that have to do with you accusing her of seeing other men?
That was one of the issues. There'd been a lot of tension bubbling. That was the major issue. But just to give that some context, I suspected very strongly she was seeing other men. Of course, your office had confirmed recently to me that there was multiple online active dating accounts the whole time we were supposed to be exclusive. But just to give context to that, that was combined with Wendy promising me the world in June. Talking about me moving in, shouldn't get a Jeep, you should get a car. The kids' car seats will fit in. The kids should start calling you daddy was the most outrageous one. And so she's like blowing herself at me over the top in a way that felt totally disingenuous and fake. And at the same time, I think she's being other guys. So it just kind of boiled over. I tried to have like a serious, honest relationship conversation with her, and that didn't go very well.
So you were kind of, at least up until all of this started happening, you were kind of full steam ahead, and it seems like school's a little stop and go, hot and cold. Is that?
It was a roller coaster, is what I would say. And I had felt since April that I was perhaps being strung along. I had that intuition. I couldn't fathom a reason why you would string a guy along like that. It didn't make any sense at the time.
All right. So we're in June, like 28th range. Okay. When do you come back from Gainesville?
The morning of the 29th, after this fight or this argument, we drive back to Tallahassee. I had another ride back, and I offered to take that other ride if the fight was that bad, because we could have broken up after this. But she wanted to ride back.
You rode together.
Yeah, we rode together.
All right. So you rode back together, and then was she leaving that day?
I believe it was I thought she picked up the kids the next day from Professor Markel's house, and that's when she met Amy Adler, and that was a big deal to her.
Amy Adler was Dan's girlfriend at the time?
Yes.
Right. So at some point after the big fight and the return from Gainesville, does she leave to go to South Florida?
Yeah, I never. A day or two later, she definitely leaves to return to South Florida. She's in South Florida by July 1.
All right. And was that the trip that she was there for her dad's birthday?
That's correct.
Did you attend the dad's birthday?
No, I was never invited to the dad's birthday.
All right. And were you aware what the big gift was for dad's birthday?
No.
All right. So when did you see Wendy next after she leaves to go to South Florida? Or I guess after you return from Gainesville?
During that 2-week period, we're exchanging emails, texts, long phone calls, video chats with the kids. Things are up and down, but it seemed like it's probably going to be okay. That's the impression I was given by Miss Adelson. Or I was being strung along 2 more weeks. But I see her again on the 13th when she comes back in town and is excited to have a date with me. So we had a date.
All right. So now we're at July 13th, 2014.
That's correct.
So within a week of the murder.
That's right.
Okay. Tell us about your interactions with her that day.
Yeah, we went to dinner and a movie, and we returned to our house on Aqua Ridge.
All right. And did she tell you anything asked to tell you anything in confidence that evening?
Yeah, in a very serious tone of voice. The topic of conversation as we're walking up to the house is about relocation, being stuck in Tallahassee, and Danny, as the conversation always was about Danny Markel. She said in a very serious tone of voice, "Can I tell you something in confidence?" For boys.
I think I'd be judged, but asked to approach.
From there, watch us going to school, you loud, but we'll call to the step down and let us stand. Okay, please step back outside. Everyone can be seated.
So little
bring up both the motion in limine and the prior order that had been issued on this matter. Ruling that was made as to the defense motion in limine concerned the state eliciting this as a part of its close and plea. However, Mr. Rothbaum at this point, Ms. Adelson has specifically denied making this statement. Why is this an improper ground for the state to explore this on impeachment?
It's still hearsay, Your Honor. It's double hearsay. It's not done.
All sorts of matters that otherwise would be inadmissible can become impeachment.
If Dr. Adelson, Harley Adelson, made that statement to Mr. LaCasse, and he denied it, he could impeach him. They're impeaching another witness. That's not allowed. That's number one. Number two, I brought up
The impeachment of one witness's testimony through another is not allowed?
but they're impeaching her to go to his statement. They're stuck with her answer. They could have kept on cross-examining her of why they thought her answer was wrong. They can't now backdoor it through hearsay in another witness. That was the whole point of the motion. Similarly, Judd, we brought this issue up first thing this morning, sidebar, because if they were going to be allowed to do it, I was going to ask Miss Adelson other questions on this issue. They said they weren't going to do it. So I didn't ask her those questions. And I didn't ask her those questions because I didn't want to open the door to it. And I can't call Miss Adelson back as a witness because she has a Fifth Amendment right and I can't give her immunity. I brought this up for this very reason. She denied the statement yesterday. That's why I brought it up today. They can't backdoor a double hearsay statement based on a denial by that witness. Can't do it.
Ms. Copeland.
Hearsay. Intentional, open one, specifically draws with a fine or flay.
It's hard to make out what she's saying. Can we, can you fast forward it all back to where he's back on the stand? It shouldn't be too far forward.
Sure. Let me see what I can find here.
But that's, what I'm trying to figure out here, Stacey, is Geek Squad. When was this appointment scheduled for the TV? Because that's going to tell us a lot. And I'm curious if the scheduled appointment date has anything or ties directly to any events with the Adelsons, previous failed attempts at Jeff's life, if that appointment was made like right at that same time or after some sort of interaction. I'm very curious about the answer to that. Oh, here we go.
Yeah.
Guess who fucking arranged it?
Who?
Donna.
Charlie?
Donna arranged the TV repair and emailed Wendy on July 11th to confirm the appointment July 18th between 8 and noon. Donna scheduled the appointment.
She's a grown woman. You can't schedule your own appointment to have your TV fixed, and you have to have mommy do it.
Wouldn't you want to, too? It's your life.
I think Wendy on the stand, and again, this is just my memory, but I think she said something like, well, Charlie may have had the money for it. I think Donna actually purchased it, and so her name was on, and that's why she called to make the appointment.
Okay,
that was her idea of why Donna made the phone call for the Geek Squad. But again, when you start adding things up with that damn TV, you're like, wow, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot on this case that is hinging on that TV. And
there is.
Jeff LaCasse seeing it, the TV getting broken, the Geek Squad, all that.
I don't know why just today it's like really standing out to me, the TV stuff.
It was just a little bit of a mention before. I mean, they focused on it, but I think it's standing out like a sore thumb right now.
I think more in the context of Wendy now it does.
Yes.
because it didn't so much matter a lot because we weren't judging Wendy's decisions or what she was doing before. It was about Wendy's. It was about Donna's actions. It was about Charlie's actions. It was about McBonna and Sigfrido and what they were doing on those specific days. This is the time we're starting to identify the specific motivations and actions of Wendy Adelson and what was going on. And that's probably why it's standing out now more in this sort of a lens versus the actual trials of the other ones.
Yeah.
Very likely.
Wow.
Jesus.
Sobering.
It is. It really is. It really is creepy. What do you think about the area here? And I want to talk about this a little bit as we kind of start to dive into our conversation about what was going on in this family, what was going on with the relationships, what was going on, what Dan was seeing in Wendy, about Wendy asking the kids to call him daddy, to call Jeff LaCasse daddy. And they certainly, they weren't at that place in that relationship. And he knew that. Seemed like she did know that too. But what is the motivation there? Because I don't think it's let's get the kids closer to you. I feel like there's some other something else going on in the background where the kids are being used as pawns.
That brings up, yesterday or the day before when we were watching some of the other testimony, I think I mentioned that Jeffrey looked a lot like Dan.
Yeah.
And the kids were young enough. Was it some way to confuse them that, okay, dad's dad, but here's your new dad. Same look, maybe same demeanor to some extent. Let's call him daddy.
Is it also, I mean, could it be something where maybe it doesn't have anything to do with the murder, but it has more to do with Wendy's insecurities, that she's on the right path and things are going the right way. And she's longing for, in some ways, some sort of normalcy in her life. And it's easier if people are just like Donna, if people are following her rules and what she wants. So she feels good about what she's doing, and that the kids are, even though they may be just kind of mimicking what she's asking them to do, Wendy can tell herself, well, see, this is good. The kids are telling him this. And I don't know, because some people do that.
It's like a kid with a blanket. Their favorite blanket gets left behind. And so mom says, well, here's a new blanket. Well, it's not the same. Well, it'll be fine. I feel like she's trying to make it somewhat normal for the kids, for this guy to be around. Maybe they'll miss dad a little bit less.
I was thinking that dad's going to be out of the picture. Here's a surrogate.
Boom.
Here's your new blanket. Here's your new
Todd's
blanket.
on fire today.
I know. What the hell? He's had his coffee.
They're gonna miss dad less.
I watched a lot of that Chad Daybell stuff yesterday, and now I've risen, so I've got all this new knowledge.
Shavaun Scott, psychotherapist and author, joining us right now. I know you're sitting there in the green room watching this. What's your thoughts on Wendy asking the kids to call her boyfriend, Jeff LaCasse, who's been testifying against her, daddy, when they really weren't at that point in the relationship?
I think it's probably multiple things. You guys have all had good points that make perfect sense. The other aspect of it, I think there can be this element of dominance and control, that she's in charge and she gets to decide these things. But yeah, trying to create, here's our idyllic new life and here's your new dad, and this one is better than the other one. So, incredibly toxic thinking on her part, but that's not a surprise coming out of this family.
No, not at all. And I guess I would say probably not unexpected out of Wendy, because if you look at Wendy's path and her life and her grooming and her upbringing and all that from Donna, she didn't really enter adult life and doesn't seem to operate adult life understanding that she has a lot of agency in her life. So nor would I expect her to understand or think that children, her own children, have a lot of agency as well, because she doesn't have it. Why would they have it? And if I simply ask them or tell them that they have to call this man dad, well, they're going to have to do it because I'm mom. Why let them come to that conclusion, or why let them come to that term on their own, which would be probably the much healthier thing to do if they ever get there, which they don't have to be. It shouldn't be for the parents to be concerned of, what label are you going to give me? You must call me dad, and especially when dad is still in existence. I've heard so many parents, and I've seen it. I've seen borderlines firsthand that like to go, you can call him your bonus dad. You mean the guy you just met last week at the gas station? He's bonus dad, and everybody should just go along with his bullshit. That I've seen. And it has nothing to do with the kids feeling comfortable. It has everything to do with the narcissist and the borderline going and saying, oh, okay, this makes me feel better.
Yeah, that's the thing you see with certain personality types, personality disorders, borderline narcissist. It's always about, how can I use these kids to meet my needs? Even though externally it looks like we're a loving, close-knit, wonderful family, but the kids end up being in the middle, and they end up being used to serve what the parent wants. And it's a really toxic environment for kids.
Yeah, I mean, it ends up just being all about it's all about image at the end of the day with a lot of these folks. And it doesn't matter how that image is conjured up in other people's minds. As long as at the end of the day, that's what the general public is seeing when they look at you, that's all that matters. And gosh, like it seems like no regard. I mean, obviously she has grandma joking about dressing the kids up like Nazis. She wants to move the kids away from dad. It feels... I mean, obviously we can't diagnose, we can't judge. I mean, this is just pure speculation and just pure conjecture. Does Wendy have a lot of care for these children, her own kids? I mean, if she's willing to let this, let's say that she did know that this was going to happen. Let's say that she did know that something was going to happen to dad, and the kids love dad, and or even that mom wanted to move him away. Let's say he survived. Is there a lot of care there for the kids, or does it go back to, I'm more concerned about what mom wants and the repercussions for that, or I'm more concerned about what I want, because that's the only guide I have in life, is showing me, well, it has to be about what she wants, so I'm mom here. It should be about what I want. Was she repeating the cycle in some sort of ways to her own children, who are very, very young at the moment?
It's love is such an interesting term, right? Did she love these kids, if that's the way it went down? And I think folks with a certain personality type, they have very, very strong attachments with their kids, but they look through this distorted lens. It's always about, seeing their own reflection through the kids. And so they care about them in a very intense way, but it's a bit twisted. It's looking through a strange filter, because it's always about, as you say, loyalty to the family and what looks good to everyone else. And it's sort of like they can't take that filter off.
Well, and the kids are almost a utility for them. They're a means to an end. They can use them to manipulate other people.
Yes.
Does that seem right?
100%, 100%. And it's really sad when you see folks like this in therapy. I mean, you just get these extreme cases where it's clear that these kids were born to meet the parents' needs, and they're consistently put in this bind where their needs don't matter. Their needs aren't even recognized, and it messes them up.
Yeah.
It's the attachment that parent has to their kids that they define as love. And I believe Wendy does probably look at her children and go, I love them. I care. Sure. Her definition of love is so probably messed up because of mom and what she had demonstrated to her of what love is. And that's fully ingrained in Wendy by this point. Could she, as an adult, wake up and go, my definition of love needs to change? And maybe, hopefully she is. Hopefully she's seeing what I was brought up with mom is not what I thought it was, and makes that change. But if you never do, then you never do. So that love, that attachment that equals love, comes at the expense of the emotions of the kids, no matter what.
Very much.
And because the kids, and I think they see it that way so often because the kids can't vocally express themselves in a clear, concise way because they're children, that it's, they're fine. They're resilient. They can deal with it until, they're a bit older and then in therapy trying to unpack the nightmare that they've been brought up around.
Yeah. Why am I in college with my mother trying to dictate everything about my life and what I major in and whether I do the homework the way she wants me to do? And she calls me every day. It's clearly about mom. It's not letting them be their own person. And that comes up a lot. If you work with college students, you get these parents that are just, you are to be the reflection of what I want you to be, with no recognition that your kid is a separate person.
When you see that in college kids, and that's the world that they were brought up in, when they try to push back and they try to gain some independence, some autonomy, what does that ever work out, or is that usually the breaking point of if they truly follow that and they say, I am going to be my own self, I have my own agency, I'm going to do what I'm going to do, and I'm going to change this dynamic here. Is that kind of the beginning of the end for that relationship with mom? Is it, and basically the rest of life, you now are going to have the passive aggressive mom who will be like that until she dies, because that's just how they're programmed, and you have to sit there and go, well, I'm going to stick with this and not let this affect me because I don't need to. Do they ever turn around? Is there ever a Donna that goes, you know what, you're right, you are independent. I was seeing this wrong my entire life of manipulating you.
It's a toss up. I think the relationship does not have to end, although sometimes it does. Those are the ones we always talk about, the ones that move across the country and block the parent's phone number. But often they can learn how to set boundaries and then tolerate and maneuver around the manipulations of the parent. And sometimes you can get the parent to come in and do some family therapy where you can really be pretty direct and coach them, and the parents can start to get it at least a little bit. And even though they want to keep spouting off with their attempts to control and dominate, they can learn to button up. And, you have to say, look, if you want a relationship with your kid, you're going to have to relate to them differently now.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like they have to do a lot of work on themselves before they can have this relationship with their kids.
Yeah. If they want a more positive relationship, they do need to do that. And do most of them want to do that? No, not really. But sometimes they can be coached. Look, even if you don't agree with the things your kid's doing, it makes sure, you're grinding your teeth over there. If you want them to stay in contact with you, you've got to learn to let them be their own person.
Good luck.
Are the parents acting at that point? I mean, is it? I mean, I think if you're the kid, you might be able to see through that too. Going, wait a second, like everything is very surface. You really can't go into super deep topics because it sets them off or gets them into their old mode. Yeah. And you just kind of really gotta, walk it on the surface if you want to have any type of relationship there. Because I don't know. I feel like a lot of those parents that, okay, even if they did kind of get their stuff in order to go, okay, I want to do this. Can they ever really dive into that and believe in it if that's not who they are?
It's a tough one. It's a tough one. They can learn, as you say, are they acting? They can learn how to act in a way where they have to take a deep breath and go, okay, this is not what I'm feeling, but I'm going to do what the therapist has told me is the right thing to do here. And sometimes they'll come into therapy and confess, I did what you told me not to do this week. I blew it. Which is a good sign if they can self-monitor that way. So every case is different. You do your best. And sometimes people just learn, I can stand about a 2-hour visit once or twice a year back at the family home. I go for Thanksgiving and I leave after a couple hours because I've got somewhere else important to be. Yeah. So you have to kind of dose parents sometimes.
Where do you got to go? Anywhere but here.
Yeah, exactly.
Anywhere but here. I want to jump into some of the divorce back and forth between Dan Markel while he was alive and Wendy Adelson. And I want to context, what we're going to go into here, this is based on Dan Markel's 2014 family court filings in Adelson v. Markel. It was filed in Leon County, Florida. Everything we're about to describe here comes from Dan's sworn motions and memoranda. These are allegations he made. They were never adjudicated by a court, because hearings were postponed and Dan was eventually killed before they could actually be heard. So nothing here should be taken as established fact or judicial finding. This is, like I said, this is how I would express it, is how Dan saw Wendy, at least legally, on paper, because these were filings that were made. So understand that as we go into this conversation, everybody. When we take a look at the filings, there's a lot in there. There's a lot of things that he points out of Wendy's behavior. And again, it's allegations. So we got to take them at that, but we're going to assume the allegations are true for the sake of the conversation, but they are just allegations. When you look at Dan Markel's filings against Wendy, what you see is more than just legal paperwork. It's a father documenting point by point the ways he felt shut out of the children's lives and deceived financially. We're talking about everything from blocked phone calls and alienation to hidden bank accounts, misreported income, and even something that's listed in these documents that's called a Holocaust family ring.
Oh, my God.
As symbolic as that he claims and alleges she refused to return to him and his family after swearing under oath that she would. I mean, taken together, if all of it's true, it paints a picture of obstruction, control, and manipulation, behaviors that go beyond normal divorce conflict. And that's where I want to start here as we go into this part of the conversation with Shavaun, because these are pretty dark allegations. It gets very dark. So let's walk through these issues one by one and kind of unpack this. Let's start out. When you go through the filings, one of the very first things that jumps out is how little contact he said he was given with his kids when he was supposed to be able to have it. He documented that over a span of 3 months, he had 25 minutes of Skype time, like combined. When they were not around. That was the times that they communicated was via Skype, not via phone, from what we understand. Not a slip-up. Seems like a deliberate shrinking of a parent's presence. I mean, to him, it was proof that Wendy was treating communication not as a lifeline, but as an intrusion, basically, into her life. I mean, what does it do to a child's bond when one parent is consistently cutting down the other's ability to communicate with them?
Well, divorce is nearly always stressful for kids. And in the short term, most will have confusion and anxiety. But there's about 25% who have ongoing, pretty extreme problems from it. And that has everything to do with the level of conflict between the parents. Kids need consistent contact with both parents, if it's a healthy enough person, you know.
If it's a healthy enough person.
If it's a healthy enough person, they need consistent contact. And the level of conflict has a direct correlation with how, and I'd say causation, with how well kids can adjust. And over time, the majority of kids in a normal situation can thrive and they are resilient and they do okay. But it's those 25% where this really toxic behavior and trying to alienate them and, you know, saying terrible things about the other parent, that's when we really worry. And surprisingly, a lot of very well-educated people who seem intelligent externally engage in behavior like that. So that's what you're describing.
It wasn't just the calls that were scarce here. After there were those issues, Danny allegedly talked to a parenting coordinator. They both had to with the court, allegedly. And the parenting coordinator had a solution for this, because a lot of these problems are fairly simple to solve if the parents can be grown-ups and do what they're supposed to do. There was a daily call time set up between 6 and 7 p.m. That's what was the solution, to make it very simple. Dan, in his filing, said Wendy ignored that order, especially when the kids were with her. So even court-backed rules were treated as pretty much optional, according to Dan. Does that surprise you at all that someone, if this is true, that would have been brought up in a home like this with Donna as mom and Wendy as daughter, that they would find whatever the court says, if they had agreed with dad, that they feel that those decisions are truly optional?
No, it's unfortunate. And in this kind of incredibly hostile, contentious divorce, you see that a lot. And the court is not very good at following up on these kind of cases. So people get away with a lot. The courts are overwhelmed and burdened, as it seems like so many things are. And I think the courts can be easily manipulated. And people come in with, this is what happened, and the other one says, no, it's not. And fortunately, we have parenting coordinators now who generally are some kind of therapist who can monitor this. And often parents even have to communicate with each other through software that goes through the parenting coordinator, right? So they're not emailing each other directly. Yeah. And they document, which again, what a way to have to live when you'd like to feel that you can parent together, because that's what the kids need. And the kids need that sense that their parents are a team in order to feel secure about themselves. But this kind of thing sets up this divided loyalty where the kids always are in this position, well, whose side am I supposed to be on here today?
Yeah.
Well, and what does that do to a child as they enter into their teen years and then adult years? How does this set them up for the future? I mean, the answer is obvious, but are there patterns that you see with kids who come from these relationships?
One of the problems is that if one parent succeeds in truly alienating the other, the kids feel abandoned and they don't realize, you know, all the other factors that were going on. And they tend to blame themselves for being abandoned. And that is incredibly sad. And that's something that they may not work out until they get to be, you know, in their 20s is often when people can unpack what really went on and what was mom saying and what was real and what wasn't. And often, you know, when they're over 18 and they can get out from under these kind of control dynamics that are going on in the family, they can have a more adult to adult relationship with the parent and hear the other side of the story. You know, I mean, I've seen parents where, let's say dad is pushed out of the kids' lives and he sends them cards in the mail. He sends them letters because everything's always interfered with by mom. And it can go the other way too. But the parent steals the letters and takes them. So the kids never see them. This is a personal thing that happened to my husband. His mother was abused and kind of forced to leave the kids behind when he was a little boy. And it turned out the mother sent the kids letters all the time. And they didn't know about it until they were adults and found this box full of letters from the mother. And so how did it affect them? Tremendously. They felt abandoned and unloved when that really wasn't the case. The mom had been domestically abused. And, you know, did it impact the development? I can say it definitely impacted the development of my husband. And then a lot of anger at his father when he found out that this is what had happened.
It happens the other way too, though. And I know you're aware of that too, where I would say I've seen it where the letters come and the child reads them and there's manipulation and it's resetting history, or it's trying to change the narrative of what life was, because one can't deal with the repercussions for what they've done, or really own up to anything of what they've done, or recognize that it existed, which can work in the opposite way as well. But but obviously the situation you're talking about there is someone that's controlling it for the wrong reasons.
For the wrong reasons. Yeah. Really excellent point. Thank you for making that, because if you have a really, we'll just say, psychologically unwell and unstable parent, they continue to try to use the kids, they manipulate the kids, and sometimes those, if we'll use the cards and letters as an example, even phone calls, it's all about them and all about manipulation. And that's incredibly toxic. These cases they're kind of hell for therapists. You know, when I quit working with kids in the 90s, for all those reasons I've talked about before, I'll work with college age kids, but I don't see a lot of little kids, because 9 out of 10 times kids are in therapy for these kind of problems, the post-divorce conflict. And it's really hard to sort out. You have to spend a lot of time and look at all the evidence, and people bring in the texts and, you know, the cards, and you have to really sort out what's going on. And sometimes that's the thing where all communication has to go through the parenting coordinator, or phone calls have to be monitored where there's actually a social worker on the line with the phone call, because they have to be able to interrupt when the parent is saying something inappropriate. They have to redirect. And these cases are so difficult and so messy. And yes, there's a lot of variables.
God, that's sad. That is so incredibly sad.
Yeah. No, it is. And disturbing that adults don't see the damage that they're doing when going through some of these things. The marital settlement agreement also gave each parent what's called the right of first refusal. What it basically means is that if one parent can't be with the kids, if the other person is, you know, locally available, that person would have the first right to watch the kids. So like, I got to go do something. You could in any world sometimes, like, oh, grandma and grandpa, babysitter, whatever. But in this case, it would be, well, I'm going to contact my ex because they have the right of first refusal. He claims she consistently ignored that, leaving them with others based on flexibility. Oftentimes it was with grandma. Let's talk about that for a little bit. And honestly, from both sides here, from your perspective, what does it do to children when they see one parent passed over, not because they're unavailable, but because the other parent, you know, won't allow it? Or sometimes, look, it's just more convenient because I may have to go all the way over town over here to get you there, or they have to come here and look, mom's right next door, or something like that. I mean, sometimes I can see where it's like, do I have to run every single time they're free through you? I'm not speaking from personal experience here. I've never had to deal with this. I'm just looking at it going, okay, but I guess in a healthy relationship, there is more leeway and back and forth. But when you're in a really unhealthy relationship, it's very rigid.
Yeah. It really causes the kids to equate parenting with conflict, and that every little thing is going to be a fight. And then that puts them into whose side am I on? I'm thinking of one case where it was a case where there was parental alienation, but it was dad against mom. And the little boy could literally never say, and this was like a 4-year-old, 4 to 5, he could never say anything nice about mom in front of dad. And dad had ended up with primary custody because there was a lot of manipulation going on. And the kid just felt this divided loyalty all the time. And he could only win dad's approval by saying bad things about mom, just like dad did, and really messed him up. It was just so sad. And yeah, that one ended up being for years in court. And I don't know that it was ever resolved. I mean, the kid's going to be 18 and have to come to his own conclusion. But right of first refusal makes perfect sense. But you nailed it. Sometimes, depending on the geographic distance, if mom's just going out for a couple hours in the evening, driving 2 hours to get to dad doesn't make a lot of sense. But when it comes to longer periods of time, like mom's going to Hawaii for a week or something like that, dad should be the one to step in. And when you see people who can be consistent and reliable and calm, that's when it all can work well. But in so many of these cases, people just aren't able to do that.
Well, and if mom is going on dates isn't that a little awkward to, have dad come over and babysit while she's, making out with the new guy outside the front door?
Yeah, that would probably, you would have to have the kids go over to dad's house if there were that kind of thing.
What a narcissistic move that would be, though.
Wouldn't it?
You wanted right of first refusal. I got a date tonight. So you get the kids. Of course, he has the right to refuse, though, too, and say, you can go send them to mom or whatever. Yeah, I mean, all these things, when in the hands of a manipulative individual, can be used wrong, can be used in very, very toxic ways. And unfortunately, I think a lot of people jump to that, and especially the right of first refusal thing. When a parent, for example, look, I'm not using Donna Adelson as a good example here, but let's say it's a healthy grandparent or something that they're going to send them to for let's say it's mom's week or something, and they had a vacation that was planned. They're going to go on a vacation, whatever it may be, and the kids are going to go spend that week with grandma because. Why not? Because it's nice to have a nice week with your grandparents if they're healthy people.
Yeah.
And then if dad wants to step in and go and say, or mom, or whoever it may be, wants to step in and go, well, I had the first right. Okay, well, they're going to take the kids to do all these things. They want to, enjoy a week with the kids or whatever it may be. What are they going to do with you? Nothing. You're going to sit in their room all week and do absolutely nothing. Dad and that sort of thing is not looking out for the child. Dad is just trying to be extremely rigid and follow the rules, or mom is following those rules simply to punish the other parent. But who's being punished more? The child.
The kids.
Right.
Yeah. And that's the thing about this is people consistently not being attuned enough to their kids to see what the kids need. And kids really begin to feel like, I don't matter here. Mm-hmm. My needs don't matter. And it's confusing to them.
And that's where a lot of the filing that we're going through is the direction that it is heading is it's the head of all of these issues that Dan was having with Wendy, stating, look, she's not following this. She's not following that. And eventually courts aren't very happy with these sort of things when one parent is not participating in joint parenting, which they've been ordered to do. Another thing he pointed out was expert advice being ignored. This is a big thing. The education of your kids. The preschool director, Dr. Phelps, recommended consistency and even suggested that one of their kids take an extra year of kindergarten for developmental reasons, which is a normal thing. This happens all the time in preschool and kindergarten.
Yep.
They can guarantee, just look around you. You may not even know. There's probably people in your life right now who've done that you have no clue about because they don't even really remember. But this does
one of my
happen.
sons. Yeah. Yes. One of my sons was he was young for kindergarten and they just said he's going to thrive if he does another year. If you move him ahead, he's going to not be as mature. And so I'm like, sure, let's make sure it's to his benefit. It's not about my ego.
That's a healthy thing to do. I did preschool for 2 years for that exact same reason, too. And I'm an August birthday. So it's one of those where it falls like, well, you could be this year, but maybe you want to do this a little bit longer. And so we decided let's do an extra year of preschool. It was fun. I enjoyed every moment of it. But if you are not doing it for the interest of the children, and let's say you have some narcissistic tendencies like Donna and things of that nature, well, that might be looked at as a blight to you, an insult to you. How could your child, and this is not what the public is saying, but this is the self-talk that's going on in the mind of somebody like Donna, or maybe even Wendy, of, oh, well, that's they're not smart enough. They're afraid that that's going to look negative on them, that the image that's being portrayed, they're repeating kindergarten. Adelson can't do that.
Right.
That's and when you start making your decisions based on that, you're not doing it for the kids.
100%. 100%. Yeah.
One of the other troubling details documented was that Dan had documented was his children repeating lines that they heard from Wendy's mom, from Donna, things like, Grandma says you're trying to take our sunshines away. It's not the kids' own words. That's them carrying the message. I mean, how damaging is that when children become a mouthpiece for the adult conflicts that are going on around them? And when they're using terms like that to the kids, it's not just, well, this is not how this is going to work right now, because this is, however you could word it 50 different ways, but you're taking my sunshines away.
It's the ultimate form of manipulation. And I am not a psychologist here, but I was a victim of this. Oh my goodness, this case just resonates with me entirely. My dad manipulated all three of us kids against my mom, and his mom did very similar things, talking horribly about my mom and what my mom was doing to the family. And I see so many parallels. The only thing that was missing was the murder. So Shavaun, I'm excited to hear your take on this, because I'm sitting here in my 50s and I'm still, it's a dagger to the heart, because I'm hearing this and I'm thinking, yeah, been there, done that.
Mm-hmm.
It's painful.
It's horrible. And I have a similar experience. If you've read my book, I met a man 10 years older than me in my fundamentalist church when I was 15. I married him at 16. By the way, kids, do not do this, right? Use me as an example of what not to do. Of course, grew out of that relationship and decided I didn't need a father, went into therapy in my early 20s. But by that time, I had 3 children. And he was still focused on Satan and constantly Bible reading, and not to negate that can be fine for some people sometimes, but when it's cult-like, it can be very destructive. So staying in the marriage was simply untenable for me. I just couldn't do it. So I went through this process of trying to be collaborative and saying, look, we can co-parent, and all the stuff I was reading in college is kids can do fine if you work together and be collaborative and be calm and support the other. And he was furious. He was absolutely furious. How dare I? And he actually would tell the kids, mommy is going to hell. And you want to talk trauma on the kids. My daughter must have been about 6 years old, and she called me crying on the phone. Dad said, we have to pray for you because you're going to hell. One year for Christmas, I bought my son a skateboard, and it was a cool skateboard, and it had a dragon on it. I think he was about 8. And he called me up and said, Dad and Dad's new wife said that Mom bought you a satanic skateboard.
Oh my God.
Because it had a dragon on it. And it made me sick to see this kind of stuff said to the kids. So, but now, they're middle-aged adults. Who are they close to? They're close to me.
Yeah.
And they see their dad as nutty.
Had you gone out and murdered him at that moment in time, that wouldn't have worked out well. That's where taking a breath.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had to take lots of breaths. And eventually, because we started off, I agreed to joint custody because that was at the time what we thought was the best thing for the kids. But when you have someone who tries to create alienation and says these incredibly toxic things, joint custody doesn't work. And so I eventually had to file for sole custody, which worked much better. And the kids now look back and they see, dad was crazy and dad was out to get you. And this was horrible that we were put in the middle, and they can see that really clearly. So sometimes, as you said, Stacey, it takes a lot of years to unpack all of it and make sense of it.
But those scars stick around for an eternity. It, as healed as you may claim to be, and I don't mean you, I mean me.
So you should say, as healed as I claim to be, is what you should have worded that.
I'm trying to put it in the third person, but those scars are deep, and there will be moments where somebody will do something and it just hits you like, oh, wait a minute. They're not trying to manipulate me. They're trying to live their life. Not everything is a necessary trigger, but it's so ingrained in who you become because it happened to you as a child. Yeah. Those are your really formative years, and it's so hard to break out of some of that. So my heart goes out to these kids. What they've been put through, just so unfair. And that's why divorce needs to just separate the stuff and be done. This manipulation back and forth and trying to damage another person is just not useful.
No, it's not a cage fight.
Exactly.
But I think a lot of people, I mean, look at our world. I mean, look how people they identify with that sort of thing to such extreme levels.
Yeah.
And then I think they everything in life becomes a cage fight. Figuratively.
But I will tell you, if it was a cage fight, my money would be on Stacy. I'm just
I
saying.
agree.
My money would be on Stacy.
I agree. I think.
100%.
Yeah.
It's that jujitsu.
It is.
Her spunk and her jujitsu.
Well, I've been getting some private lessons lately, so I'm getting pretty good at it.
Birthdays were battlegrounds too in this. Dan said that they had agreed to hold joint birthday parties. Of course, Wendy backs out on that. There's a lot that's being painted in this document from Dan of essential isolation of the kids from Dan on very key points in their lives, on things that matter, on things that don't even matter. Just kind of across the board, I'm going to do everything I possibly can in my power to exclude you from these children's lives, except for when the court says you absolutely have to be involved. But even then, I'm going to find reasons and avenues to skirt that so you don't have to be. We were talking earlier, right, when you came on about the Wendy telling the kids to call her boyfriend daddy. Just if these allegations are all true, it really seems to point, especially Wendy, backing out of excluding him from the kids' birthday parties. The kids wondering, where's dad? It really points to, I would say, again, whose mind are we dealing with here? Is it Wendy's or is it Mom's in terms of excluding dad from all of these things? Is Wendy truly the one that's saying, I don't want dad to be a part of these lives? Or is she following Mom's orders as a foot soldier? And the people who are truly being traumatized here are the children, and Wendy's completely oblivious to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Could go either way with that. It's just so hard to sort out. Donna's power over everyone, her dominance and control has been a consistent theme. And it could just be that Wendy slides into that very naturally, or back in the day, she slid into that very naturally and came up with good excuses, good reasons that she could rationalize for herself in order to do that.
Wendy, in the affidavit that we were talking about, Wendy listed jewelry, cars, and personal property at $0. There were many accounts that appeared to be moved or hidden in this process. What is going on here? I mean, everybody does try to protect themselves in that sort of a situation. But that's why there's discovery. You can only hide things so much. And especially if you're not going to hide them well, what the hell are you doing? I mean, is it just stupidity on the part of Wendy Adelson on some of this, of just not understanding, what you need to do and that you're going to get caught in the cookie jar over here? Or is it something, Mom didn't get her hands on to veil well enough yet?
Yeah, it speaks of a lack of integrity, doesn't it? Which is a bad sign. But people do that a lot. And often, even when there aren't kids involved, they rationalize why that they're entitled to this. But it's lack of integrity. It's playing dirty. And we often, in a divorce, we see the absolute worst in people, which is, makes it all the harder for everybody.
And if true, it don't get much worse than this piece, the Holocaust ring. If, again, this is an allegation from the filing, okay? This was allegedly a diamond ring from Dan Markel's family tied to Holocaust survival. I tried to dig into more of the meaning of it, exactly, who did it belong to? What's the full story? I couldn't find much other than it was called a Holocaust ring in the divorced proceedings. And according to the proceedings, the allegation is under oath. Wendy promised that if Dan's elderly uncle ever asked for it back, she'd return it. The uncle did ask, and according to Dan, she refused. That's the allegation. That's pretty freaking dark. You're keeping it for what?
Just for spite. I mean, come on. That's just another pawn in the game.
The
right?
Holocaust. I mean, that's like I can't even like Who would do that? I mean, even if you absolutely hate the person. I mean, it's from your lineage, your family that survived the Holocaust, and you're like, I'm going to keep this for spite over here.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah. Dominance and control again. Exactly. And giving somebody the middle finger again. And that can feel really good to a very angry person to do things like that. But yeah, it's pathetic. It's pathetic. Lacks integrity. No inner sense of justice or what's right and wrong here. It's all about, look what I can get away with.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, humans are going to go back to self-preservation. There's also allegations here in this that on the day of the divorce filing, she withdrew hundreds of thousands of dollars from their marital accounts without telling him. For him, it wasn't just some money. It was proof that she was setting the tone of unilateral control, basically, from day one. And that's what she appeared to be attempting to do. Who was steering the ship? Was it Wendy? Was it more Donna? I don't know the answer to that question. But obviously, unilateral control was the goal. And Dan was ultimately going to get to a courtroom, and a judge was going to hear all of these things. He was going to hear all of it. And Dan dies the day that these filings were supposed to go into place. Coincidence?
Doesn't look like it.
No.
Yeah. Yeah, it really doesn't look like it at all. There was a lot of money at play. There was a lot going on here. Let's play this from the other angle for a second. Not necessarily Wendy's angle, but had Dan survived? Because I think a lot of people are able to relate to this. We've all been able to relate to this story in many different ways. But the dynamics change, obviously, if he lives, if this never happens. He's still dealing with all of the behaviors he alleged: block calls, secrecy about travel, disputes over school, alienation. If you're a parent in that position, you can't change the other person. Right. So how do you even begin to parent in that sort of an environment when you have this going on, where strategies are going on that a parent is basically using to sabotage the other at every element they possibly can?
Yeah, here's my plug for therapy. Get support. Find somebody who really works with these kind of awful, toxic situations, because you need a place to put your feelings and to work on strategies. And how can you try to parallel parent where you're not letting this leak out all the time? Because it's hard when you're feeling so victimized. It's hard not to let that leak out. And so you want to have some strategies for that. And you have to, unfortunately, minimize contact with the other parent, but in front of the kids, be respectful, not leak out, what's really going on, and do your best to follow the plan and keep a parenting coordinator involved. I mean, a lot of times, at least what I'm seeing here in Oregon, these parenting coordinators are involved until the kid hits 18, just because they need to have somebody who's in the middle and somebody else who's monitoring. And then hopefully that person can report objectively back to the court when somebody's really blowing it over and over. Because the courts have a really hard time sorting out what's true, because people will come into court. He did this, she did that, back and forth, and the judges don't know. Yeah. And so you do have to document everything, which is so hard. It's so stressful psychologically. I think it's one of the having this kind of situation with your children is one of the hardest things people go through.
Well, and I wonder what happens when they become adults. You've had this person who's been mediating conversations and things, and suddenly you're an adult and all that drops off. Well, now you're on your own. That's a tough dynamic.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
No, the mediation, though, is happening between the parents.
Yeah.
And at that point, they don't have to communicate at all. At 18, it's done. Good. Yeah. Over.
But do they stop? That's the thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that does it go back to toxic land? Well, at that point, if you don't want to, you just block the person. There's no legal reason you have to be in contact with that human being anymore. They can send all the nasty grams they want. It doesn't make a goddamn bit of difference.
Yeah.
But if it's, then they'll likely still continue, even if that does happen, Shavaun. What's likely to happen in that scenario if they're not able to manipulate the opposing parent? Even though the kids are adults now because they're being blocked left and right, I'm going to guess the manipulation then turns to the child to try and manipulate the parent that way, which essentially you're just using your kid then to get back at somebody else. Another not great parenting move.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes those toxic messages about, we'll say how awful mom was or how awful dad was, that just continues on as the story forever, and they never can let go of it. But usually the parent who's doing a lot of that, they push the kids away and they push the kids in the other direction, which is a good thing.
What about this, though? I mean, because we talk about children like suddenly at 18, oh my gosh, their minds are open. Now they can suddenly understand what's going on around them. Kids catch this shit pretty early. They figure it out. And it's not always because mom or dad is saying bad shit about the other parent. They just catch on because they have agency. They have eyes. They have ears. They can see and hear, especially if one parent is being very blatant about it, everything directly to the kid within the dynamics of their own relationship, or being very blatant just with their actions to the other, to everything else around them. And the kids call the shit out. And there's plenty of kids who don't, that I think are completely aloof to some of these things. And in some ways, I feel the same way about adults that are that aloof. I'm like, it would be fun to live that way for a day, and be that aloof to everything that's going on around me, but I'm not. And I think a lot of kids are not either. What about when the kids are catching on? When the kids are seeing this and they're making their own conclusions about mom or dad and their actions, and the parents, they're taught, well, don't say anything negative about mom or dad about the other party because you don't want to do that. Isn't it healthier to help that child not feel crazy? Then be like, no, they're wonderful, they're great, the court says I have to say this, or whatever, or just be like completely silent, which I think can also be just as damaging. Like, oh, you feel that way? Okay, great, thanks. No affirmation, no recognition that their feelings exist or that they have autonomy. That, I think, is a big thing we don't talk about very much, because kids figure this shit out at a very early age. It ain't teen years. It's like pre-teen years. I've seen it. Yeah. And I mean, it's a big thing. And I think you can do just as much damage if you don't recognize those feelings as well.
Yeah, you're saying something that's very important, because kids 8, 9, 10 years old, but certainly as they get into their teen years, they start to express it a lot more assertively. Yeah. They don't want to go for the weekend visits. They don't want to go for half the summer. And they have really good reasons why they don't want to do that. Yeah. And I see that come up in therapy too, where the therapist has to honor what is very legitimate, and you can sort out when kids have just been brainwashed and when, no, these are really legitimate concerns. And that is often a reason that people go back into court, and attorneys can be appointed, at least where I live, to represent the children. Mm-hmm. And that's where you get out of the mom said, dad said, and the attorney for the children can talk to the therapist and then go back into court and talk with the judge and have a conversation about what is really best for the kids. And sometimes we need to eliminate some of this. They don't need to be all summer over there. They don't need to have all these weekends, and cut it back, because the kids have very strong feelings. Now, that doesn't happen all the time because people don't realize, or they don't have the resources, but I've seen when there are these things brought up to court, if you have good attorneys, the attorneys can go to the judge and say, Judge, we request that, the kids be appointed their own lawyer who's working for their best interest, to kind of get it out of the mom versus dad war. Mm-hmm.
I will speak from my own experience on this. Kids get sick of you trying to sugarcoat shit. I mean, a lot they do. At least in my world, I've seen that, where you do try, for a very long, like they're not, like calm down. There's good things here, and you try and be the parent that's going to be open, and you try to play by those rules, and you're like, no, it's not all bad. But at some point, they're just going to tell you to shut up. Why do you keep encouraging this relationship that only causes me damage and hurts me? And if we're up to the court half the time, if we're up to the way that we think things should work, you're doing just as much damage to that child, even though you're the safe parent.
Yeah.
And that's where I at some point had to be like, yeah, you're right. I have nothing to sugarcoat here, and I don't. And in my world, I don't have to make anything up. I don't want to make anything up. I wouldn't make anything up. But there's just enough there where it's like, well, the facts stand on their own.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where that's how I've always operated. It's like, well, if someone's going to dig their hole, they're going to dig their hole. I don't need to pitch in with a shovel to go, hey, let's make this a little deeper. Some people just dig and they keep digging. Unfortunately, it's at the damage then of those children. But I think that's a big thing is the sugarcoating of reality for children, because then they're not being heard. They're going to feel they're not being heard. They're going to truly know they're not being heard as they get older and be even more confused as to, well, what the hell? I thought that this world was like this or that. And now I'm seeing this and it's not, or they just know that you're lying to them. And then that hurts any trust that may exist with that parent that is the stable one. And that, again, it's all these things we don't talk about because it's icky.
Yeah. Well, they're very nuanced.
Yeah.
And yes, we, as a general rule, say speak well of the other parent.
Sure.
But that means that the other parent is a fairly normal person that we want to speak well of. What if the other parent is a sex offender? What if the other parent is a drug addict who, is in jail and has done some really awful things? I mean, you can't just go around about, he's a great guy. I mean, the kids can see that there's problems there. When my youngest was fourth grade, I believe, he came to me one day and he was very sincere and he goes, Mom, why did you ever marry Dad? He said, I don't get it. And so, that was the perception of a little kid that Dad's a bit different than Mom, and he couldn't put two and two together. So I just had to say, I was like a teenager and I didn't really think it through and didn't know what I was doing. And you want to come up with a way to be supportive, try to keep a calm and neutral tone, just because that makes it, a calmer situation to discuss with the kids rather than a hysterical, scary situation. But validating reality is a part of being an attuned parent. Good point.
It's needed. And otherwise they're not going to be able to validate reality if reality is that fluid. And it's not an easy thing. I just kind of operate like I don't have to, I don't have to say anything negative. But I'm going to operate on facts. Yeah. And I think that's where we should have more encouragement of that. So we're not spinning a tale for the children about a world around them that really doesn't exist. Yeah. That seems to be a big thing. If you were to give, Let's throw this situation out there, because I'm going to guess this may be going on in a home somewhere that has an address tied to Wendy Adelson, with two teenage children in it that are not oblivious to the world around them, that have seen what the hell's going on, that Uncle Charlie's in prison, Grandma's in prison, Grandma and Grandpa tried to flee the country, and they've both been convicted of conspiring to kill their father. And Mom's still in the picture, and she's obviously not been charged with anything as of right now, but things aren't looking the greatest. There's a lot of suspicion around Wendy. How the hell do you parent that when the kids are like, did Grandma conspire to kill Dad? How do you handle that if you were to give Wendy a little parenting advice?
Oh my God. God. Yeah. Isn't that hell? These poor kids, how to help them differentiate from the family and help them see that, if it's proven, as it seems to be, that all these things happened, how do you separate from that? Yeah. And how do you see that, this history doesn't have to haunt your life. And that's where I think, it needs to come from a therapist, probably from forces outside of Wendy. I can't imagine what happens in school for these kids.
Can you effectively parent at all? I mean, your children, when your family has literally, that you were brought up around, it's like these grandparents or the uncle were foreign. These were big parts of these kids' lives.
Yeah.
And it was this happy, supposedly, on the surface when you're a little kid. I'm sure their memories of everybody together are jolly and happy. And then suddenly everybody's going to prison for killing your dad?
Changes the holidays, doesn't it?
Holy crap. I mean, granted, we're talking about this like, oh, boom, but it's a slow build. It's slow manipulation. So who knows if these children have been manipulated for years to think dad was bad and the Markel family is horrible. And who knows, it may not be as harsh as it is, like it's hitting them like that. But it is going to hit them like that as they get older at some point, if they start to put the dots together and go, I don't know how you parent that. I don't know how you, other than we can't talk about this together, you need to talk to your therapist about that, which again, not ideal, not healthy, that your own children can't come to you and have a conversation about your murdered father.
Right. That's one of the insidious things about this. What's healthy in this system, and how in the world do you help kids navigate stuff like this? They've got a rocky road ahead. And as I said, I hope they flee to Europe and change their names at some point and just can erase it to the best of their ability. Because, I have to say this would be a very slow, ponderous process of helping them heal from all this.
I would say, if they're ever watching this, you're not attached to your last name.
No.
Yeah.
You can change it. In fact, it's not even supposed to be Adelson, technically. It should be Markel. Maybe go change that back and maybe get out of Dodge when you can. Life will get better. You can have your own autonomy. You can pretend none of this shit happened. You don't have to tell it. If you change that, you can do it. And you can have your own life that's completely not defined by these people. For Wendy, it might be a little too late. She can go change her name. She can go do some stuff. And for the love of God, I hope that all this stuff that looks Wendy look very bad is optics. And she really was that clueless and really, I don't want anybody to be a victim of anything, but I hope that the story goes she was 100% the victim of her family, and that she has no guilt in any of this, and that she is really a horrible victim of circumstance, and that if that is the case, she can get the hell out of Dodge and do the exact same thing, change her name, start over, have another life, realize the errors of the ways that you were taught and brought up in, that it's not your fault, but you have the other half of your life here to go change, and you can do something completely different. I hope she is not what it's looking like she might be through the prism of Danny Markel's divorce documents.
Yeah.
That's perfect advice.
Yeah. Or the eyes of Jeff LaCasse.
Yeah. Co-signed by me.
Yes. Is everybody else co-sign that? Are we all on board that we hope Wendy's not part of this?
Ding, ding, ding.
Can't say it's going to be real. That's, but stranger things have happened. So, God, it's just such a horrible, heartbreaking story. Shavaun Scott, psychotherapist and author, and the book that you've been referencing, Nightbird, available wherever books are sold. Go check that out. It is a great read and really goes into your story, which is quite incredible. And I think relatable and healing and cathartic for probably many, many people. So I highly suggest checking that out. All right. For Shavaun, for Stacy, for Todd, I'm Tony Brueski. We will talk again real soon.
Want more on this case and others? Then press subscribe now and don't miss a moment of true crime coverage from Tony Brueski and the Hidden Killers podcast.